2019 sucked, and you know it! And the video games were bad. Top 10 worst games of 2019. Look, the game is cute. Super cute. Yoshi's Crafted World exudes aesthetic everywhere you look, from Yoshi himself to how every level looks like it's built out of crafts and everyday household items. All of that is great and super charming, yes. And that's where my praise ends. It doesn't do anything inherently wrong, per se. It's just so boring. Not even in a this is made for super casual or young players kind of boring. It's so repetitive. It is heavily on the easy side, so nothing poses a threat or challenge. And the idea of going back through the same level in the opposite way to see the other side of everything seems like a unique gimmick, but ultimately you're playing through every damn level twice with very few changes. For what is a new and interesting concept, it wasn't utilized in interesting ways or in enough ways to keep the game fun the whole way through. It's like that guy who shows up to your party, but he doesn't talk to anyone or do anything. He just stands in the corner blending into the background, and you can't help but wonder, why is he even here? What's he doing? Who invited him? That's Yoshi's Crafted World at your party. Also, it's me. You know what game I really enjoyed? Until Dawn on the PS4. The developers made the every character can die aspect really work to a fun and surprisingly supernatural story. You can feel the weight with each decision the first time you play through it, and it was fun to play again to see how things could be different. Madan, their follow-up, was the opposite. The story was way worse, with far more "lols, we tricked you" decisions and what feels like cheap punishment against the player. And all the characters are unlikable or so two-dimensional that I couldn't even tell you their names, which when compared to Until Dawn is really saying something. I love these kinds of games and would love to see more of them. Madan is supposed to be the first game in a new quadrilogy of games, setting up an ongoing universe across each game. But with how poor this one is, it wouldn't surprise me if we end up not seeing the rest of them, which makes me kind of sad. This is another one of those games where it not turning out well is a letdown because you can tell that it just didn't quite have enough development time into it. It runs poorly, animations are awkward, there are game-breaking bugs, and it stutters throughout playing it. If they just had a little bit more time for it, it would be so much more enjoyable. Instead, the most enjoyment you can get out of Madan is seeing Icemen die. I've never played a video game that is so aggressively against the player in everything you do. Death Stranding is entirely made of some of the least enjoyable gameplay tropes that everyone despises: walking simulator, fetch quest, and delivery boy. But it does all of those things while fighting against you in every possible way. Controls are ass. Just the simple action of running from point A to point B and then back to point A to C to D, back to A, whatever, is wrought with Norman dumbass constantly falling over slightly to the side, and you have to press the trigger buttons to straighten them out so you don't crash. Do you know what other game does this exact same thing, but facetiously? Desert Bus. You are a bus slightly drifting off to the side, and you have to sometimes press a button so you don't fall over and look like an asshole. Vehicles are even worse in their handling, and the climbing mechanics are laughably absurd. There is nothing fun about just running from one place to another over and over and over again. Your rewards for even doing any of this mind-numbing bullshit? Exposition dumps, a results screen, and maybe an upgrade. The worst part about the results screen is that it shows you all these numbers, all these different things you did so you could level up your delivery man level and see it go higher to no tangible effect other than making you feel like you accomplished something when all you really did was waste your time for the past 25 minutes. This is the exact same kind of false affirmation that is used by mobile games. You are manipulated into thinking you are progressing and that the upgrades are somehow worth it. But here's the thing with those upgrades. Unlike other games, when you get new equipment that expands your abilities and makes the game more fun thanks to the newfound power you've acquired, Death Stranding gives you upgrades that only slightly diminish the sheer aggravation you encounter over and over again. You don't feel cooler or stronger at any point, only the game is less irritating to play, but never achieving a healthy point in which it feels fun. It's like, instead of starting at level 1 and going up to level 30, you start at level negative 2600 and maybe claw your way up to level negative 1536, where everything still sucks to play. And no, the cutscenes and story are not worth it. No amount of bad gameplay is worth whatever minutes of cutscenes vaguely explaining a nebulous plot with pseudo-philosophical dribble. And that amount of gameplay between said cutscenes can last hours, and I mean hours, killing any feeling of pacing you were hoping for. It sucks. It's a huge disappointment after years of enigmatic hype for Kojima's first project free from the garbage fire that is Konami. And this shows that even he needs someone next to him saying, hey wait, no, that's actually a really stupid idea, and rein him back in. Stupid ideas like having the game block your Spotify account on your PS4, forcing you to listen to whatever Kojima's Spotify playlist is. I was able to find a way around this thanks to this video's sponsor, Raycon. Raycon makes high-quality Bluetooth earbuds. They're sleek, compact in design and to carry, and come in a lot of different colors. I have their newest models, the E25s, and I've been super impressed with how good they sound compared to other wireless headphones. They last a long time at full charge, like 6 hours or so, and have improved bass compared to previous models. So, here's what I did. When I'm playing something that doesn't let me listen to my own stuff, I used my Raycons. I put them on, pulled up my favorite podcasts on my phone, and then I put on my normal headset on over them so I can hear the game sound a little bit. You know, just in case something important happens. And you can be assured of how comfortable they are, as every pair comes with 5 different sizes of fit. You want maximum comfort? Put them all on there. Just put them all on there. Go to buyraycon.com/ProJared for 15% off. This one hurts. Nobody wants a game to be bad. I don't like saying something doesn't live up to expectations because that may not necessarily be the game's fault. With Anthem, however, they failed to live up to the expectations they presented us. Try to remember the previews of Anthem at every E3 event leading up to its release. Remember the hype, the promises, the actual gameplay footage shown, along with Electronic Arts saying, this is how the game will be. It's like everyone forgot that it's being published by Electronic Arts, so of course they stepped in and ruined it. Honestly, the story of Anthem and its development at the constantly falling BioWare is too long, intricate, and numerous to sum up in a simple top 10 video. I recommend reading all the articles that came out about it. Read about how they didn't have working prototypes weeks before presentations. Read about how they didn't even know what the game was going to be until about 18 months before it came out. Read about how a CEO at EA forced them to implement certain features. It's fascinating. Like, how can a game's development go this wrong? Rest in peace, BioWare that we all once knew. Anthem proves they're gone forever. I realize this one seems like an easy target at this point, but there's a reason why I'm not putting it higher. For as bad, glitchy, awful, unfinished, and unbearable it is to play, you gotta admit, this crap's funny. WWE 2K20 is yet another awful wrestling game in the long-running series. At this point, there's an expectation of these games being unpolished pieces of absolute garbage. But goddamn if I don't get a good laugh out of this. I'm not even a wrestling fan by any means, and let's face it, they haven't made a wrestling game as good as WWE No Mercy on the N64 ever since. Aside from the boring, glitch-tastic wrestling gameplay, it's the story mode that's so laughable that it reaches so bad it's good territory. And months after its release, the whole game has not been updated in a way enough to get it into a non-broken, buggy mess. These animations are cartoonish and all physics go out the window. Man, don't buy this game. But like, if you could play it for free from some idiot friend who paid money for this, you should totally do it. If you manage to get it to play at all, that is, because the game crashes like all the time. How do you make a game that has a billion recognizable anime icons suck so bad? It's like they thought all they needed to make a fun fighting game was just a crap ton of obnoxious motion blur and as many particle effects as they can. Jump Force is basically a worse version of Dragon Ball Xenoverse, which came out before this game and also has DBZ characters in it. Only in Jump Force, everyone looks like plastic figurines, but moister. It's uncomfortable to look into their soulless faces and stiff animations and way too many cutscenes, even if they are on their way to storm into Area 51. I think I'd rather just take literal action figures and slap them together and I would have more fun. It's one of those fighting games where while there's a lot of characters, there's very little difference between any of them, and every special attack is essentially a variation of another. And it's difficult to call it a worthwhile fighting game that has such poor hit detection, super armor, and uninterruptible animations so fights become spam fests, and a camera that whips around so constantly on top of the motion blur means you can't even comprehend the spectacle before you. It hurts to look at. Well, hey, at least there's a character creator so you can make your own fighter and oh lord, what is wrong with my legs? They're breaking off! To help give you an idea of how weak 2019 was for games, this was in the running for best fighting game. You know, maybe I just need to change my outfit and whoop. Alright, never mind. Game killed itself. Blair Witch the game is as much wasted potential as Blair Witch the movie, and all of its sequels, combined. Another one of those walking simulator types of games, but with more to it, like having to use your flashlight to defend yourself against creatures of the night, stealth mechanics, and a good boy. And you can pet him. So seeing that, you get excited. A horror game with a dog sounds rad. It's not, at all. Everything you're taught to do is a punishment later in the game. Those monsters you killed with your flashlight? Don't do that! Don't defend yourself, idiot! Do not destroy the stick figures that mess up your vision while you're at it! It feels like they tried to set up a gotcha moment with the ending, providing a twist that's supposed to surprise you. I didn't feel surprised. I felt ripped off, since everything the game told me to do is actually wrong. Cool, man. You sure got me. Plus, you can see the ending coming a mile away, crawling across the ground with 2 broken legs and stumpy arms, reaching a non-existent hand toward you in a plea, as if it were begging, "Please, master, please think I'm clever." It isn't. I'll even just spoil it for you, because you're not gonna play it. It was you. You were the bad man the whole time. What? Which, in this case, was true, because I was the dumb idiot who bought and played this game. Eternity: The Last Unicorn is generic. Generic fantasy and a generic action RPG. That isn't what makes it bad, that's what makes it boring. What makes it bad is that it's a 2019 game that plays like a PS2 game from 2003. The graphics alone are uninspired enough, with blank, soulless stares on every character, lighting that doesn't seem quite right, or unimaginative enemy and area designs, but it's that fixed camera angle that makes it feel instantly dated by over a decade. Remember these kinds of games, where as you're running forward, the camera angle suddenly shifts and the direction you're pressing on your control stick suddenly doesn't make sense to where you're running? That's the whole game, paired with a stiff run animation or dodge shuffling. It gets worse when in combat, as it'll abruptly show you something that you don't care about in the middle of trying to hit something. Nothing about whacking stuff with your sword is satisfying either. You have the typical weak and strong attacks, but I've never seen a weak attack be so literal in a video game before. It's so worthless to use to the point that you ignore that button on your controller entirely. Not that the strong swing does much better either, as some enemies, like the bosses, end up being such damage sponges that fights take forever. And the hit detection is visibly bad. This game also has crafting, why not? Which, whatever, it means you stiffly pick up garbage after you kill every enemy to fill your pockets with trash, but you need to craft to create key progression items. And even worse, you can fail the crafting, meaning you have to grind enemies to get what you need again in an already uninspired and unfun combat system. Eternity is by no means the most offensively bad game that came out this year, but it's notable in that it was doomed to fail. It was designed to be outdated, but also a poor imitation of those older style games. There was an art to making those restrictive camera angles work with providing the player the information needed to play. And this ain't it. I can't even begin to describe how ugly this game is. What you see is what you get. There is no weird compression here. Contra Road Core literally looks like it runs in 540p, or like a mobile game that was improperly upscaled for current gen consoles. Character models are ugly, cross-eyed, and every attempt at explosions is weak. Do you remember when Konami first teased this game? I do. It was E3 2011. It took them 8 years to come out with this. It's hard to screw up the Contra formula, but goddammit, Konami did it. Never think they won't let you down again. All you had to do was make it so you run, jump, and shoot dudes. Instead, they made it into a twin-stick shooter with awkward aiming, and even worse, while aiming, your movement slows to a crawl. That fast-paced action Contra has always been known for suddenly falls flat. This game feels like it was made by 13-year-olds. It's the embodiment of trying too hard. Awful animations, swearing for the sake of swearing.
You're late, Kaiser.
You're a fucking dick, Harakiri! Leave that drill bitch alone!
And just cringy one-liners. Levels drag on like you wouldn't believe, and bosses take way too long to kill, even when they're not glitching out and getting stuck into a corner becoming unshootable. Now remember, this costs $30. For only $20, you can get the Anniversary Collection that has Contra 1, 3, Hardcore, and the arcade game, which is such a better deal than this piece of shit. And because Konami can't help but be Konami, this game has DLC for costumes. But you can only get the costumes if you buy, what else? The Season Pass. Did you know that if you put in the classic Konami code, up, up, down, down, left, right, BA start, you unlock an apology? Hey, Square Enix, imagine my surprise seeing you here. again. At least this is no Quiet Man atrocity. This is Left Alive, a game that takes place in, of all things, the Front Mission universe. The first game in the Front Mission franchise in about 9 years. And that's a series that's all about giant robots, shooting, and tactical RPG gameplay. Left Alive is a stealth game, but it's a stealth game that doesn't have stealth mechanics. Sneak up on a guy and want to silently take him down with a melee grab? Nope, all you can do is beat the shit out of him and hope no one notices, and then shove a crowbar up his butthole. The game is unbearably obnoxious, as moving towards enemies causes the game to warn you with
Caution, the enemy is approaching.
every single time.
Caution, the enemy is approaching.
Every single enemy, even if you've already seen them.
Caution, the enemy is approaching.
Movement is awkward, as the most viable stealth thing you can do is crouch and move, making you look like an idiot as you try to be stealthy by doing the duck walk. Cool, huh? And don't forget, you're trying to be stealthy in a universe that has giant robots that will see you and kill you in 3 shots. Metal Gear Solid, this is not. You'd be forgiven for expecting something like that though, since the artist who did the covers for the Metal Gear series also did the art for Left Alive. And I think that Square knew that that would sucker people in, and then sucker them out of their money, which is their most proficient skill set, which is the opposite of this entire game. It wants to be a stealth game, but includes a bunch of third-person shooter elements that overcome any amount of stealth, like cover shooting and crafting. The moment you start shooting though, you'll see just how janky the aiming is and how much worse the hit detection for bullets are. And if the bullets somehow do manage to land, enemies are such sponges that you'll feel so stupid for expending magazine after magazine after magazine to kill one guy. I think the most depressing part about this is knowing that this game isn't going to do well, and Square is going to take that as meaning that people don't care about Front Mission anymore, which is not true, Square. It means people don't care about bad ideas with forced executions, which I guess would mean people don't care about most Square Enix games anymore. Left Alive was a horrendous disappointment and still managed to fly under most people's radar. But for those of us that saw, we easily know that it's the worst game of 2019. But Jared, what about the top 10 best games of 2019? I tried. I couldn't come up with 10. I forced my way to like 7, and that's it. Probably because all the really good games of 2019 got delayed into 2020. But on the bright note, that does mean 2020 is going to start off really strong. As long as, you know, none of those games get delayed again. Thank you so much for watching. In case you couldn't tell, I streamed myself playing most of these games. So be sure to follow me over at twitch.tv/ProJared to watch me play these things live, and to see me working on upcoming ProJared videos. And if you like this video, subscribe here.